I didn't mean to send that to you. Alex stared at his phone, the screen mocking him with the words that shouldn't have left his fingertips. His pulse raced. It was too late now. Before we dive into this story, I need to know something. Have you ever made a mistake so big you couldn't undo it? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. And if you've ever been afraid to face the consequences of your own mistakes, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, this one's going to hit hard. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. Alex barely had enough time to sip his coffee as he buckled his daughter's shoes in the living room. The scent of burnt toast lingered in the air. He could hear her little voice singing a song in the background, a tune she made up, as usual. It was a sweet sound, but it was overshadowed by the weight of everything that needed to be done. He glanced at his phone. 8:25 a.m. He was late again. Sweetheart, did you get your lunch? He was trying to juggle her homework, his own breakfast, and mentally preparing for a meeting with his boss in just a few hours. Life as a single dad wasn't easy, but he didn't want his daughter to feel the burden of it. She nodded, oblivious to the stress wrapping around her father like a tight knot. With a sigh, Alex grabbed his keys and called out, "Remember, I'll pick you up after school. You'll be all right?" She grinned and gave him a quick hug. "Yeah, Daddy, I'm fine." He smiled back, ruffling her hair as she ran out the door to the school bus. The weight in his chest didn't ease. It hadn't in a long time. Work, parenting, the house that needed cleaning. All of it was piling up, and there was never enough time to make it feel like it was all together. At the office, the building hummed with the usual hustle. Alex was already behind. He had to get that report to Megan by noon. She would be expecting it, as always. Megan was everything Alex wasn't. She was organized, sharp, and always on top of things. They'd worked together for a couple of years, and over time, Alex had come to respect her. But Megan was also distant, emotionally unavailable, maybe even guarded. Her smile was rare, but when it did appear, it had a way of reaching the corners of a room. She didn't seem to have a personal life, no kids, no visible partners. It wasn't that she didn't care. It was more like she had a part of herself locked away. Alex had noticed that, but it was something he never dared to ask about. "Alex, the report?" Her voice broke through his thoughts as she approached his desk. He met her gaze, nodded, and handed over the paper. "Right here. Sorry about the delay. Just had a few things with the kid this morning." She took the report without a word, her expression unreadable. Alex didn't know what to make of her sometimes. She was polite, professional, but when it came to anything personal, she kept it all tucked away. They'd had small talk, sure. Casual conversations about work, the weather, but nothing deeper. Nothing beyond the confines of the office. It was around noon when Alex's phone buzzed on his desk. He was working through lunch, trying to knock out the last of his emails. But there, on his phone screen, was a message from his ex. She had sent him a quick note about their daughter's upcoming school play. He smiled, thankful for the reminder. But then, his fingers moved without thinking. He was still distracted, barely looking at the screen when he typed out the words. "I miss you." Alex didn't even realize what he had done until after he hit send. The sudden realization crashed into him like a freight train. Wait, that wasn't for her. His stomach sank as he stared at the screen. Megan's name was right there, the message blinking back at him. His heart raced. Why did I send that to her? For a moment, Alex just stared at the phone. Time seemed to stop. The room felt smaller. There was no going back now. It wasn't like Alex had feelings for Megan. Or at least that's what he told himself. He was a single dad, wrapped up in the chaos of his life. He wasn't ready for anything new. But that text, "I miss you," had somehow escaped his fingers without his permission. The guilt immediately washed over him. He could feel his cheeks burning. What would Megan think? Would she think he was some kind of weirdo? Or worse, would she think he was interested in her? He thought about calling her to explain. But his phone didn't feel like it belonged in his hand anymore. Instead, he stared at it, waiting for some kind of sign that this nightmare would end. There was nothing. No message back. Just silence. As the day dragged on, the weight of the situation didn't let up. Megan didn't respond. Did she even see the message? Did she think it was a joke? Or was it a mistake she wanted to forget? Just before he left work, his phone buzzed again. It wasn't his ex this time. It was Megan. Her message was simple. 2 words. We need to talk. Alex's stomach twisted into knots. The uncertainty of what that meant hung in the air like smoke. He stood there in the quiet office, staring at the words. There was no turning back now. Alex stood by his front door, heart pounding in his chest. He didn't know how long he'd been standing there, staring at his phone. The message from Megan hadn't changed. We need to talk. What did she want to say? Why was she coming over? His mind raced, but no matter how many times he checked his phone, the words didn't change. There was no going back now. He had just finished putting his daughter to bed. She was asleep now, tucked under the covers, her favorite stuffed bear resting beside her. Alex closed the door to her room softly, the weight of the day pressing on him more than ever. He didn't know how to explain this, didn't know what to say if Megan showed up and confronted him. The doorbell rang. It wasn't a surprise, but it felt like his whole body froze. He took a deep breath, swallowed hard, and walked to the door. When he opened it, there she was, Megan, standing on his porch with her arms crossed, looking as calm as ever, but there was something in her eyes, something that made Alex's stomach turn. Hey, Alex said, his voice suddenly thick with tension. You got my message. Megan nodded, her face unreadable. I did, she said softly. We need to talk about it. Alex stepped aside, letting her in. He tried to gather himself, but it was hard. Everything felt like it was happening in slow motion. They stood in the living room for a long moment, the silence between them heavy. Alex could feel his pulse in his ears. Megan's gaze flickered around the room, taking in the photos on the walls, the clutter on the coffee table, and the well-worn couch where Alex had spent countless nights trying to get work done while his daughter slept. Finally, Megan broke the silence. So, she started, her voice steady but with a hint of something else. Maybe confusion, maybe something else Alex couldn't quite place. That message you sent, what was that about? Alex ran a hand through his hair, the words sticking in his throat. He wasn't sure how to explain this. It wasn't just about a text, it was everything. The pressure, the loneliness, the desire to have someone in his life who could understand him. He wasn't sure Megan could ever understand that, but the mistake had been made. The text had been sent. It wasn't for you, Alex said quickly, though he wasn't sure if it made it any better. It was meant for my ex. I wasn't thinking clearly. It just slipped out. I'm sorry. Megan didn't say anything for a long time. She stood there, arms still crossed, eyes searching his face, trying to read him. There was something raw about the way she was looking at him now, like she could see deeper into his soul than anyone else had. It made Alex feel exposed. Megan let out a slow breath. I didn't think you were that type of guy, she said, her voice softer now. You've always been so focused on work and your daughter. I didn't know that was how you felt, or if you were even capable of feeling that way. Alex's heart tightened. Was she accusing him, or was she just confused? He didn't know, but her words stung. I didn't mean for it to come out that way, Alex said again, the frustration building. I've got a lot going on. I've been doing this on my own for a while, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing anymore. His voice broke, just for a second. He hated that it did. Megan's face softened. She unfolded her arms and took a step closer to him. I get it, she said quietly. It's just, this whole thing has been a mess, hasn't it? She didn't wait for him to respond before continuing. You've got your life and I've got mine. We both have our stuff. Alex looked down at the floor, his mind racing. He hadn't planned on this conversation going this way. He didn't know what he had expected, but this wasn't it. There was so much he still didn't know about her, and yet, something about the way she was talking felt too familiar, too real. Megan stepped back and sat down on the couch, glancing at Alex. Her posture was more relaxed now, but the vulnerability still lingered in her eyes. Alex didn't know what compelled him to speak next, but the words slipped out. I don't want to be alone. Not like this. Megan's gaze softened. She didn't say anything for a long moment, and Alex could almost hear her thoughts racing. 2. You're not alone, she said finally, her voice low but comforting. But it's complicated. You're complicated. Alex let out a breath, unsure if it was a relief or a weight added to the pile. Complicated seems to be my middle name these days, Alex said with a bitter chuckle, trying to lighten the moment. But it didn't work. The tension still hung between them, thick and unspoken. Megan's eyes softened. She nodded slowly, almost as if she understood. We all have our moments, she said quietly. But sending that message, it makes me wonder what you really want. Are you looking for something? Or was it just a mistake? Alex stared at her, his mind blank for a moment. Was it just a mistake? He couldn't tell. There was so much he was still figuring out. So much that didn't make sense. I don't know, Alex finally admitted. But I guess that's what I've been asking myself too. There was a long silence after that. Neither of them spoke, both caught in the weight of the words they had shared. The air in the room felt thick, but not with anger, with something else, something they couldn't name yet. Finally, Megan stood up, walking slowly toward the door. Alex stood too, not sure what to say, not sure if anything needed to be said. But before she left, Megan turned to him. Her eyes held something, an emotion Alex couldn't quite understand. If you ever figure it out, she said quietly, let me know. But I think we both need some space to figure out what comes next. With that, she walked out of the door, leaving Alex standing there, lost in thought. The door clicked shut behind her. As Megan leaves, Alex stands frozen in the hallway, trying to process the conversation. Her words echo in his mind, and he's left with more questions than answers. What does she really feel? Is there something more here? Or was it all just a mistake? The uncertainty pulls Alex into a whirlpool of emotions, and the audience is left wanting to know. What will happen next? Will Alex finally confront his feelings? Will Megan return to resolve the tension? The emotional weight of the moment makes it impossible to look away. The next few days felt like they lasted weeks. Alex couldn't stop replaying that night in his head. The way Megan had stood in his living room, the confusion in her eyes, her soft words that still echoed in his mind. Let me know if you figure it out. It had been 4 days since their conversation, and nothing had been the same since. They still exchanged brief work emails, but nothing more. It was as if she had slipped back into the background of his life, where she belonged, professional, distant, untouchable. Alex tried to convince himself that he was fine. After all, it was just a mistake, right? A simple, harmless mistake. But it didn't feel that way. It didn't feel like something that could be forgotten. Not for him, at least. His daughter was the only thing keeping him grounded. He focused on getting her ready for school, packing lunches, and taking her to after-school activities. That was the routine, and it was the one thing Alex could still count on. But when he came home late one night, the house quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator, something hit him. He walked into the living room and saw the small pile of paperwork on the coffee table. Unopened bills, tax forms, work reports. It was all there, reminders of everything he had been avoiding. But what stuck out the most was his phone. It sat on the counter, charging, silent. He glanced at it, no texts, no emails, nothing. For a brief second, he thought maybe he could forget about it, push it away. But he couldn't. It was late, almost midnight, when Alex decided to send the text. He didn't want to. He really didn't. But his thumb hovered over the screen, and before he could think about it, he was typing. Hey Megan, I know things got weird, but I can't stop thinking about our conversation. I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable. He stopped, stared at the screen. Was this a mistake too? He didn't know anymore. All he knew was that the silence between them was unbearable. He waited for a few minutes, the phone feeling heavier in his hands with every passing second. Nothing. No reply. His heart dropped. He almost laughed at how foolish he felt, but it wasn't funny. Not at all. He tossed the phone down on the couch and walked into the kitchen. His mind was racing. Why couldn't things just be simple? He wasn't used to this kind of emotional mess. He had always prided himself on keeping things together, doing what needed to be done. But this was different. This was beyond him. The next day at work, Megan barely acknowledged him. She passed him in the hallway, eyes fixed forward, not even a flicker of recognition. It was like the conversation had never happened. It was like he didn't exist outside of their professional relationship. Alex couldn't help but notice the way she had been acting. Was it his fault? Had he made it worse? Was she avoiding him? He tried to tell himself it didn't matter. After all, this was just a misunderstanding, right? He could move on. He had to. There was no reason to keep thinking about it. He didn't have time for this, for feelings. He had responsibilities, a daughter to care for, his own life to get back on track. But no matter how many times he told himself that, his mind kept drifting back to her. Back to the way she looked at him that night. Back to the way her voice softened when she spoke. He sighed, pulling up the next set of reports on his computer, trying to focus. But it wasn't the work that weighed on him anymore. It was the thought that somehow Megan had slipped away. Maybe because of him. Maybe because she didn't know how to handle what happened between them. Maybe deep down it was his own fault. It was around 2:30 p.m. when Alex saw her again. Megan was standing by the coffee machine in the break room, her back to him as she stirred her cup of coffee. She looked different. Still professional, but there was a weight to her presence now. Something quieter, more distant. She didn't turn when he entered. Alex hesitated. Was this his chance to clear the air? Or would he make it worse? His heart raced, but he knew he couldn't avoid this forever. He walked up to the coffee machine, trying to sound casual. "Hey, Megan." She turned slightly, eyes flicking to him, but her expression was neutral. "Hey," she said, her tone soft but distant. "How's everything going?" "Good," Alex said, his voice tight. "Been busy with work, you know how it is." "Yeah." Megan nodded, stirring her coffee again, avoiding his eyes. "I know how it is." There was a pause, an awkward silence that stretched between them. Alex tried to push through it. He had to say something. "I've been thinking about what we talked about," Alex said finally, his voice just above a whisper. "And I know I made a mess of it." Megan's fingers stilled on her coffee cup, but she didn't look up. "We don't need to talk about it, Alex," she said quietly, her words careful. "It's fine." Alex's chest tightened. Fine? Was it really fine? Was this how it was going to end? "But I don't want it to be fine," Alex said, his voice rising just a little. He couldn't help it. "It's not fine. I don't want to pretend like nothing happened. I messed up, and I need to make it right." Megan looked up at him then. Her eyes were soft, but there was something else there. Something unreadable. "Alex, you don't have to make anything right. Sometimes things just happen." Alex felt the weight of her words. "But I don't know how to just let it go," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Megan gave a small, almost sad smile. I know you don't. But sometimes, letting go is the only thing left to do." And just like that, the moment was gone. Megan turned and left the room, leaving Alex standing there, the sting of her words still fresh in his mind. As Megan walks away, Alex stands there in the break room, feeling more lost than ever. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know how to fix this, or if it even can be fixed. The tension between them is palpable, and the audience is left wondering, will Alex be able to let go? Or will he keep pushing forward, trying to fix something that might never be right again? As Megan disappears out of sight, Alex is left questioning everything. And the question now looms. Will they find a way to move past this? Or will the distance between them grow even more? It had been 2 days since that conversation in the break room, and Alex hadn't heard a word from Megan. She had kept her distance, and for the first time since they started working together, there was an awkwardness in the air whenever they crossed paths at the office. The unspoken tension was thick, suffocating almost. Alex had been doing his best to focus on work. Meetings, reports, budgets, but it wasn't easy. His mind kept drifting back to Megan. Her words, her eyes, the way she'd said, Letting go is the only thing left to do. Felt like they were stuck. He wanted to fix things, but something about the way Megan had pulled back made him hesitate. Was he just making it worse? Or was this what she wanted? Maybe it was better to leave things alone. But the truth was, Alex didn't know how to do that. The thought of moving on without ever knowing what could have been between them made him feel empty. The tension between them finally broke when their boss, Mr. Daniels, assigned them to work on a project together. The last thing Alex wanted was to be in close quarters with Megan, but there was no escaping it. They were a team whether either of them liked it or not. The project was a big one. It involved several departments, and Alex and Megan were tasked with coordinating all the moving pieces. It was the kind of project that demanded hours of attention, endless phone calls, and a lot of late nights. As they sat down in the conference room for their first meeting, Alex couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation. Megan was sitting across from him, typing away on her laptop, barely acknowledging his presence. The walls were back up, and it was clear she was doing everything she could to avoid any kind of personal conversation. "Here's what we need to focus on," Megan said, breaking the silence. She was all business, no warmth in her tone. "We have a tight deadline, and if we're going to hit it, we need to divide the tasks clearly." Alex nodded, trying his best to stay professional, but the tension in the room was almost unbearable. Every time he looked at her, he wanted to say something, anything, to break the ice, but he held back. She had made it clear that she wasn't interested in talking about them, and he wasn't sure if he was ready for that conversation anyway. Over the next few days, the project kept them in constant contact. It was a strange mix of professional focus and awkward silence. They worked well together, there was no denying that. But the moments in between the work were what got to Alex. The way Megan would avoid looking at him during meetings, the way she never stayed in the office long after hours, the way her replies to his questions were clipped and efficient. One afternoon, they were both stuck in the office late, working through details. The office was nearly empty. The hum of the fluorescent lights and the sound of their typing were the only things breaking the silence. Alex could feel the weight of the room. Every time he glanced up at Megan, he felt the pull. The pull to ask her what she was really thinking, to ask her how she felt. He had to fight the urge to speak. But then, something shifted. For just a moment, he saw it, the smallest crack in her armor. Megan had just finished a phone call, and when she hung up, she leaned back in her chair and sighed heavily. Her eyes closed for a brief second, and Alex caught a glimpse of exhaustion. It was the first time in days he'd seen anything resembling vulnerability in her. Without thinking, Alex spoke. "You okay?" His voice was soft, almost hesitant. Megan's eyes flicked to him, but there was no wall this time, no shield. She was just tired. "I'm fine," she said. But the way she said it made Alex wonder. She didn't sound fine at all. She sounded like someone who was holding everything together by the thinnest of threads. He didn't push her. He didn't know if he was allowed to ask more. So, he just nodded, looking back at his laptop. But the moment wasn't lost on either of them. It was after hours, and they were both still there, their work far from finished. As Megan gathered her things, Alex found himself standing by the door, wanting to say something, anything, to bridge the gap between them. But the words didn't come. Megan paused before walking out. "I'm not trying to make things weird, Alex," she said quietly. Her voice was softer than usual, and for the first time in days, there was no wall between them. It felt like she was finally letting him see her again, even just for a moment. Alex met her eyes. "I know," he said, his voice low. I don't want to be a mess. I don't know how to fix what happened between us." Megan gave him a small, almost sad smile. "I don't know either," she said softly. "But we'll get through this project. That's something." The way she said it, "that something," made it feel like more than just the work that connected them now. It felt like a tentative truce, a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back to each other. But neither of them was ready to admit that yet. As Megan leaves for the night, Alex is left standing there, his thoughts swirling. The tension is still there, but now there's something new, something fragile and unspoken. What comes next? Will they continue to bury the emotions between them, or will they finally confront the truth? Alex's heart is heavy with uncertainty, and the audience is left wondering, will they make it through this project? And what will happen when the lines between business and personal finally blur? The following days blurred together. They worked late into the evening, the office filled only with the sound of typing, the occasional rustle of paper. Megan had finally started to open up, just a little. There were moments, fleeting but real, when they exchanged a few words that weren't about the project. But they were brief, guarded. Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something was just off. Every time he saw her, it felt like she was a little more distant, like she was pulling away again. He couldn't tell if it was because of the tension they'd been avoiding or if she was just overwhelmed by the project. But something about the way she held herself, the way her smile didn't reach her eyes anymore, made him feel like there was more going on beneath the surface. It was late one night when Alex found himself sitting at his desk, looking over the final drafts of their project plans. His mind was racing, he was exhausted, but he couldn't stop thinking about Megan. Her smile, her laugh, the way she had been so full of energy when they first started working together. Now, she seemed like a shadow of that person, weighed down by something he couldn't see. He glanced up from his papers and saw her standing by the window, staring out at the city. It was a quiet moment, one of those rare pauses in time where everything seemed still. But the silence between them was louder than anything else. Alex stood up, his legs stiff from sitting too long. He walked over to the window, standing beside her but not saying anything at first. He didn't know what to say. The words he wanted to speak, "I miss you. I want to fix this," felt heavy in his chest. He wanted to tell her how he felt, but he didn't know how. For a long time they stood there, looking out at the city lights. Finally, Megan spoke. "I never meant for any of this to happen," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex turned to her, heart pounding. "What do you mean?" Megan took a deep breath, staring at the floor as if the words were too hard to say out loud. "I've been through a lot these past few years," she admitted, "and I didn't want to drag anyone else into it. I didn't want to make things complicated." Alex's heart sank. He knew there was more to it than just their awkward exchange. He had been so focused on his own feelings, but Megan was carrying something heavier, something he hadn't fully understood. "You don't have to go through it alone," Alex said, his voice softer than he meant for it to be. "Whatever it is, you don't have to do it alone." Megan glanced up at him, her eyes wet but holding back tears. "I don't want to keep dragging this out," she said, her voice breaking. "I don't want to keep pretending like I have everything figured out when I don't. I don't want to keep hiding." Alex felt a lump form in his throat. The vulnerability in her voice hit him harder than he expected. Was that what she had been doing all along? Hiding? He couldn't imagine what she had been through, but the pain in her voice made it clear that it wasn't just about them. It was something deeper. For a long while, neither of them said anything. The tension was still there, but now it was different. There was an understanding between them, something unspoken, but real. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that came with honesty. Finally, Alex spoke. "I get it," he said, his voice low. "I do. But I don't want to pretend like I don't care. And I don't want you to push me away. I'm not going anywhere." Megan's eyes flicked to his, and for a moment, it felt like the weight of everything they hadn't said was finally coming to light. Her shoulders slumped, and she shook her head. "I don't know how to make things right," she said softly. "I don't know how to fix what's broken." "I'm not asking you to fix anything," Alex replied, stepping closer to her. "I just want you to know that I'm here. We can take this one step at a time. No rush." There was a moment of hesitation before Megan took a slow breath, her hand trembling slightly as she wiped her eyes. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered, as if the words were harder to say than anything else. Alex gently placed a hand on her arm, trying to offer some kind of comfort. "You don't have to have all the answers. I don't either. But I'm here, and I'm not giving up on you." Megan closed her eyes for a moment, taking in his words. She let out a shaky breath and finally nodded. "Okay," she said quietly. Maybe we can try to figure this out. The vulnerability in her voice hit Alex harder than he expected. It felt like a breakthrough, like they were finally on the same page, even if it was just for that moment. But they both knew that this wasn't the end. There was still a lot of healing to be done, still a lot of questions unanswered. They had taken a step forward, but the road ahead was uncertain. Let's just take it one day at a time, Alex said softly. We'll get there, together. But just as things started to feel like they could be okay, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something else was coming. He wasn't sure what, but it was there, hanging in the air, waiting. As Megan wipes away her last tear and nods, the weight between them feels just a little lighter. But the question still lingers in the air. Can they really fix this? Alex has opened up in a way he never has before, but Megan is still guarded, still carrying a lot. And deep down, Alex knows they aren't out of the woods yet. What happens next? Will this fragile connection be enough to bring them together? Or will the weight of their pasts tear them apart once and for all? The next few days were a blur. The project was wrapping up, and deadlines loomed. But as the pressure mounted, something else began to grow between Alex and Megan. It was subtle at first, just a little more distance when they passed each other in the halls, fewer words exchanged during their work sessions. And yet, despite their efforts, the walls they'd worked so hard to build around themselves were crumbling. Slowly, uncomfortably, Alex kept wondering if this was the breaking point. They had made progress, yes, but each small crack was like a small fracture in their trust. What had begun as a project they could get through together had now become a fragile tightrope walk. One misstep and it could all come crashing down. It was late on a Thursday evening when everything came to a head. The office had emptied out for the day. Only Alex and Megan were left, their laptops casting a dim glow across the empty room. There was so much left to do. Finishing up the final presentation, wrapping up reports, but everything felt like it was dragging, like they were simply going through the motions. Alex sat at his desk, staring at the screen. But his mind was somewhere else, on Megan. He couldn't stop thinking about her, about the way her voice had trembled the night before, the way she had looked at him, half frightened, half relieved. He glanced over at her desk. Megan was still hunched over her work, her face tight with concentration. She didn't look up. He could feel the distance between them in the air, thick and heavy. Finally, he stood up. "Megan," he said softly, his voice breaking through the quiet. She didn't answer at first, but when she did, her words came out sharp. "I'm busy, Alex. We've got deadlines." Alex frowned. It wasn't the tone he expected. He took a step closer to her desk, his heart racing. "I get that, but I also get that something's wrong. You haven't been the same. You've been shutting me out." She looked up then, and for the first time in days, her eyes weren't hiding behind a wall. They were raw. "I'm fine," she said quickly, but it was empty. "You don't have to pretend with me, Megan," Alex said, the frustration in his voice leaking through. "I can see it. I know you're hurting." Megan's jaw tightened. "You don't know anything about me, Alex. You don't know what I've been through." Her words stung, but there was truth in them. Alex knew she had been through more than he could understand, and that thought made him feel helpless. How could he help her if she wouldn't let him in? Megan stood up from her desk, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I don't need anyone's pity," she snapped. The tension between them crackled, thick and suffocating. "I'm not giving you pity," Alex replied, his voice soft but firm. "I'm trying to understand. I care about you, Megan. I care about what you're going through." She took a step back, her eyes avoiding his. "That's the problem," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You care too much, and I can't let anyone get that close to me. I can't let myself need anyone." Alex felt a pit form in his stomach. "You don't have to do this alone," he said, his voice strained. "You don't have to push me away." "I don't know how to stop," she admitted, her voice barely audible. The rawness of her words hit Alex like a punch to the chest. He could see the pain she was carrying, the scars that were buried deep inside her. The walls she'd built were there for a reason, and maybe he hadn't understood them until now. Megan's breath caught in her throat as she turned away from him, wrapping her arms around herself, like she was trying to hold all of her brokenness together. Alex didn't know what to do. He reached out, his hand hovering in the air, unsure if he should touch her. But then, she spoke again, her words slow and heavy. "You have no idea what it's like to be completely alone, Alex," she said, her voice shaking. "To think you're better off without anyone, because they'll just leave you in the end." The vulnerability in her voice shattered whatever walls Alex had left. He stepped forward, his heart pounding. "I'm not going anywhere, Megan," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I won't leave you." But Megan didn't look at him. She kept her back turned, her shoulders trembling. The weight of everything she had carried alone seemed to fill the room. Megan took a deep breath, then turned to face him, her face streaked with tears. She didn't try to wipe them away. "I don't know how to believe that," she whispered. "I don't know how to trust anyone anymore. Not after everything." Alex's chest tightened. He understood, in a way. But that didn't mean he could just walk away. "You don't have to trust me all at once," he said, stepping closer. "You don't have to do anything you're not ready for. But I want to be here for you. Not just for this project, but for whatever comes next." There was a long silence. The tension between them felt like it would break at any moment, but neither of them moved. The storm outside had picked up, the sound of rain pounding against the windows filling the empty office. Finally, Megan spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what to do with all this," she said. "I don't know how to fix it." "You don't have to fix anything," Alex replied. "You just need to let someone in. Let me in." She shook her head, her voice trembling. "What if I'm too broken?" Alex's heart ached. "You're not broken," he said softly. "You're just hurting, and I want to help. Please, just let me try." Megan didn't answer right away. Instead, she lowered her gaze to the floor, and Alex could see the struggle in her eyes. She was torn between wanting to let him in and the fear of getting hurt again. The silence between them grew heavier as the rain continued to pour outside. Megan stood there, her arms wrapped tightly around herself, unsure of what to do next. Alex didn't know how much longer he could stand there, hoping she would let him in, knowing that the decision was hers to make. Will Megan open up and let Alex help her through her pain, or will her fears hold her back? The weight of her decision hangs in the air. The question remains, can they truly move forward together? Or is this the end before it even begins? The next morning, the air felt different. It wasn't just the storm that still lingered outside, the rain tapping lightly against the windows. It was something between them, something that hadn't been there the day before. There was a heaviness, but it wasn't just the weight of their unspoken words. It was the fear of everything that might break if they didn't face it head-on. Alex couldn't stop thinking about their conversation the night before. Megan's words echoed in his mind. "What if I'm too broken?" He knew that wasn't true, but he also knew that healing wasn't something you could rush. It had to happen on its own, in its own time. But that didn't make it any easier to watch her suffer. The office was empty again, save for the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant sound of traffic outside. Alex was sitting at his desk, hands wrapped around his mug, staring at the same page of his report for the 10th time. He didn't really see the words. His thoughts were all on Megan. He had given her space the past couple of days, but now, as he sat there, he knew he couldn't keep waiting. He couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay. He needed to know where they stood, and if they even had a chance. He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor as he walked toward her desk. Megan was hunched over her laptop again, lost in her work, but this time, she didn't seem as closed off. Her posture was a little more relaxed, her shoulders not as tense as they'd been before. "Megan," Alex said, his voice steady, but with a hint of nervousness. She didn't look up at first, but he could see the way her hand paused over the keys, as if she knew this was coming. "Yeah?" she asked, her voice soft. Alex took a deep breath, his hands slightly shaking. "We need to talk." Megan raised her eyes to meet his, and for the first time in a long time, he saw something different in them. There was still pain there, but there was also a flicker of something else. Maybe hope? Maybe fear? About what? She asked quietly, a small knot in her throat. I can't keep doing this, Megan, Alex said. He felt a rush of vulnerability, but he pushed through it. I can't keep pretending like we're fine when we both know we're not. I need to know if we're really going to work through this or if this is just not meant to be. Megan's eyes flickered away from him, and for a moment, she looked like she was about to say something. But then she stopped herself. She looked down at her hands, her fingers twitching nervously. She sighed, the sound heavy with the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. I don't know, Alex, she said quietly, her voice cracking. I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I can trust again. Alex's chest tightened. He had known she was scared, but hearing it in her voice made it so much more real. This wasn't just about them anymore. This was about everything she had been through, the walls she had built to keep herself safe. I'm not asking you to rush, Megan, Alex said, his voice low. I'm just asking if you're willing to try. I'm asking if you're willing to take the risk with me, even if it scares you. Megan's eyes flicked back to him, her gaze soft but conflicted. I'm scared, Alex. I don't know if I can do this. If I can let anyone in again. Alex stepped a little closer, his heart pounding. I get it. I know you're scared. But I'm not like the others. I'm not going anywhere. I don't want to walk away from this. She swallowed hard, her emotions threatening to spill over. For a long moment, she said nothing, her gaze lost in his. And then, finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I want to believe you, she said. I really do. But I don't know how. They stood there for a moment, the weight of her words hanging between them like a fragile thread. Alex wanted to reach out, to pull her closer, to show her that he was here, that he wasn't going anywhere. But he knew better than to rush her. I can't fix everything for you, Megan, Alex said softly. But I can be here, right now and however long it takes. Megan's eyes glistened as she looked up at him, her breath shaky. I don't know if I can believe in that, in us, not after everything. Alex let out a deep sigh, his eyes softening. You don't have to believe in everything at once. You just have to believe in this moment. Believe that we can try, one step at a time. Her chest rose and fell as she let his words sink in. She didn't say anything at first, but Alex could see the conflict in her eyes, the struggle between wanting to protect herself and wanting to trust him. He wasn't sure what she would decide, but he couldn't stop trying. Finally, Megan nodded, a small, fragile smile pulling at the corners of her lips. One step at a time, she echoed, the words more to herself than to him. Alex smiled back, a weight lifting slightly from his chest. That's all I'm asking. But even as he said it, he knew they still had so much to work through. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. It might be long, filled with moments of doubt, setbacks, and fears. But for now, they were both here. And maybe that was enough. As they stood there, the space between them slowly shrinking, it felt like a beginning. But neither of them could deny the sense of uncertainty that lingered. They had made a commitment, but what would that commitment really mean when things got harder? Will they be able to overcome their fears and heal together? Or will the weight of their pasts continue to haunt them? It was a Saturday morning when Alex woke up to the sound of rain gently tapping against the windows. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind. So much had happened. So many unspoken words finally spoken. So many walls slowly coming down. But now, in this quiet moment, he felt like he could breathe for the first time in what felt like forever. He turned over and saw Megan asleep next to him, her face peaceful, free from the weight she had carried for so long. Her hand was resting on his chest, her fingers lightly curled into his shirt, like she was trying to hold on to something she couldn't quite explain. Alex smiled, feeling a wave of warmth wash over him. It hadn't been easy. There had been moments when he thought they might not make it. But here they were, together. For the first time in a long time, Alex felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. They had taken things slow. There was no rush. Every day had been a small step forward, a quiet commitment to each other that felt like it would last. There were still scars, still moments of doubt, but every conversation, every touch, every shared smile built something stronger than either of them had thought possible. That morning, Megan woke up before Alex, her eyes blinking open as she stretched beneath the covers. She glanced at him, a soft smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "Morning," she whispered, her voice still thick with sleep. Alex stretched, then rolled over to face her. "Morning, beautiful," he replied, his voice warm and steady. There was no hesitation, no uncertainty, just the quiet comfort of being here with her. For a moment, neither of them said anything. They just lay there, the world outside still sleepy, the rain outside tapping against the windows like a soft lullaby. Megan let out a small sigh, and Alex could feel her hand tighten on his chest. She wasn't saying anything, but he knew. He could tell that she felt it too. This wasn't just about being together physically. This was something deeper. This was healing, this was growth, and this was love. Later that day, they walked to the park near their apartment. It was a small, quiet park, nothing fancy, but it was the place they had come to when things felt overwhelming. They sat on a bench by the lake, their fingers intertwined, watching the ripples on the water as the rain slowed to a gentle mist. They didn't have to say much. They had reached a place where silence didn't feel uncomfortable anymore. Felt natural. Every time Alex glanced at Megan, he could see it, the small changes. The way her shoulders weren't as tense. The way her eyes didn't carry that same burden of fear and doubt. She was letting go piece by piece, and for the first time he saw hope where there had once been only pain. Megan squeezed his hand, breaking the silence. "You know," she said softly, her voice tentative but strong, "I never thought I'd get here. I didn't think I could trust anyone again." Alex nodded, his heart swelling with emotion. "I know. I didn't think I could either. But we're here. We're still here." She looked up at him, her eyes meeting his, and for the first time, there was no fear in them. Just understanding, just a quiet certainty. "I don't know how we got here," she admitted, her voice quiet. "But I'm glad we did." Alex smiled, the warmth in his chest spreading through him. "Me too." As the afternoon sun peeked through the clouds, Megan turned to face him fully, her eyes shining with something new. "Alex," she said, her voice clear now, not tentative. "I want to keep trying. I want to keep building this, whatever this is. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I want to walk through it with you." Alex's heart skipped a beat. He could feel the sincerity in her words, the quiet strength in her gaze. She was opening up, giving him a piece of her heart that she had kept locked away for so long. "I want that too, Megan," he said, his voice steady but thick with emotion. "I don't know where we're going, but I know I want to be there with you." They sat there for a moment, their fingers still intertwined, as the world moved on around them. There was no rushing. There was no pressure. It was just the two of them in this quiet moment of understanding. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow across the lake, Alex reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. Megan raised an eyebrow, surprised. "What's that?" she asked, her voice light. Alex smiled softly, unfolding the paper. "Just something I've been meaning to give you," he said. Megan took the paper from him, unfolding it slowly, her eyes scanning the words on the page. They were simple words, handwritten in Alex's familiar scrawl. "I miss you every day, but I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." Megan's eyes flickered to his, her breath catching in her throat. "Alex," he squeezed her hand gently, "I know we've been through a lot, but I'm not going anywhere. Not this time." Megan's eyes filled with tears, tears of relief, of love, of the healing that had taken place between them. She leaned into him, her forehead resting against his. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for staying." Alex kissed the top of her head, holding her close, knowing that this quiet moment, this soft promise, was just the beginning of something they both had been waiting for. In the quiet of that park, with the sun setting and the rain finally gone, Alex and Megan knew that their journey wasn't over. There would still be challenges, still be moments of doubt. But for the first time, they didn't have to face them alone. They were ready to take the next step together, ready to face the future hand in hand. But one question lingered in the air. Would their love be strong enough to handle whatever came next? Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.